If we're being totally honest here, the following program is going to give you nightmares. Your third grade teacher is pointing and laughing at you. She is going to tell you that you flunked the third grade, which negates all the rest of your achievements. Seriously, don't watch this. We can't warn you strongly enough.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of 3 Geeks Flix. Joining me as always is the Muse, Justin Kyle. Say hello everyone, Justin.
Hello everyone.
Yes, and I am the Tech, Mitchell Wright. We're coming at you here with a Geeked movie review. This is a spoiler alert for all you out there. This is the spoiler review. If you want to see the spoiler-free review, look up Beta. That's our show where we do spoiler-free reviews. But this is the spoiler review for Batman vs. Superman, and this is one we've been sitting on a couple of days, so we're going to jump right in and get right after it. And the first territory or area I'm going to talk about is the cast and what we think. We're going to give you pros and cons. So, as we always do, and I look to you, Muse, and say, Justin, give it to me.
Okay, so everyone in the cast, I think, did a great job. Obviously, Ben Affleck did a great job. Henry Cavill did a great job. Jeremy Irons did a great job. He is actually the definitive Alfred to me now, even more than Michael Caine. Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, she did a great job. The only person that I really kind of wasn't feeling what they were giving was Eisenberg with his performance. There were a couple times during it to where it was to me it was so over the top. I was kind of rolling my eyes a little bit and trying not to laugh. So like one scene in particular, just as an example, is when he's having his party and he's giving his speech at the party, and he like stops and he starts arguing with himself. It's like, I think they took a bold move, him trying to be so like eccentric, intelligent, but I just wasn't buying a lot of it. It just seemed over the top to me. Everyone else, they did a great job. Amy Adams, she was better than Man of Steel, but yeah.
All right. Cast-wise, on my behalf, Affleck, fantastic as Batman, regardless of what you think of him as a person or as an actor. He was awesome. I actually enjoyed him both as Batman and Bruce Wayne. And, I talked to somebody today that had a criticism that he wasn't so much the Bachelor. But I think the reason he's not so much the Bachelor is because this is an older, aged Bruce Wayne. And time is kind of worn on him a little bit,
Right.
Cavill, Superman, again, the conflict in him, the worry, it definitely helps dull the polish that Superman and Clark Kent usually has. It gives him a very human feel,
right?
Even though he is, Kryptonian. So I think he played that well. I think a lot of people are going to underrate him as far as his performance goes. It was well above what he had performed in Man of Steel.
Right.
Jeremy Irons, fantastic, nailed it. He put his own touch on it and went home and wore the shirt. So,
stop that! Silly!
It's all day long. I felt Amy Adams again did fine. I don't feel that she took anything away. Like I said, I feel like her relationship with Clark and Superman, given the fact that they are an item in this. There's your first spoiler. It did feel more natural. It didn't feel so. It didn't feel like they were acting it. It felt like it was very smooth, very easygoing. Especially that bathtub scene, the whole bathroom scene, and whatnot.
Right, and I'm glad they took a leap and they, they did a bold decision when they just, they're full out living together. They're together. That's one thing that I liked as far as their relationship goes.
They got rid of that odd dynamic of the whole relationship dating thing, and just I like how they said, look, she knows who he is. She knew who he was at the end of the other one, and things have progressed, and this is where it's at, and here you go. Not a whole lot of long story or progression into that, so it was well played on as far as I feel on that half.
Right.
Yeah, I really didn't have a whole lot wrong with Eisenberg, but I do see where the eccentricities that he tried to portray. It is not typical of necessarily what we've seen, other than when Gene Hackman was fairly eccentric as Lex Luthor. And, Spacey was eccentric to a point, but he was still scary. And it almost feels as if Lex is broken, like something has broken him. And that's why I think, as I said in the beta review, there's layers to it. I'm thinking maybe he is referring at the end to Darkseid, and the effect that has had as far as on his personality and what's coming and what's going to happen has kind of pushed him over an edge. And I don't know if they're going to play to more of a megalomaniacal Lex Luthor, or just a straight up crack job whacked out guy. So I think the Legion of Doom play, there's some story to it, and we may not know it until future films. But overall, everybody had a really strong performance, and I don't have any complaints as far as that goes. Even the little cameos from Aquaman, The Flash, and Cyborg. Even though poor Cyborg didn't have to do a whole lot of acting other than screaming on a table. I like Miller's look, the whole persona. Momoa, he's got that Islander kind of feel to him. So I look forward to all that. And then of course Gal Gadot. You can't take away from Gal Gadot. She made it her own as far as Wonder Woman. They gave you a little bit of idea and backstory. But I like that she was strong. She wasn't vulnerable, a little mysterious. You could tell there's a past there as far as her not wanting to get involved, and I think that's setting us up for her movie.
Yeah. What you mentioned, the kind of like the tie into the Justice League. I know a lot of people have a problem with that. That's one of the things I've heard complain. They thought it was kind of lazy writing, that Lex was the one that actually had all the research and not Batman, and that you discover it through an email. I guess it wasn't very creative. That didn't really bother me. Mm-mm. None of that really bothered me a lot. The only thing was I wasn't a big fan of the Cyborg one. The Aquaman one was okay. I thought the Flash one was awesome. The Flash one was straight up awesome. That one got me excited.
The Aquaman one, he floated there a little too long.
It didn't. I mean, it was just like, oh, okay. And then the Flash one, I thought I've heard it compared to straight up like a CW TV show.
Yeah, the Flash, that's on there.
It's just like, I don't know. It didn't bother me, but it didn't straight up excite me like I think it should have.
Yeah. And I like I said, it's going to be a little more darker, gritty world, and I think that's going to be well played into. And critics need to get off the Marvel mindset when they're reviewing a DC movie. So, but which kind of takes us into the next part, story-wise. What's your feelings? What's your thoughts as far as how the story went, sir?
Okay, so this is tough because if you remember our first trailer break for Batman v Superman, that was a beast of an episode.
Yep.
And my biggest concern was they were going to cram way too much in, and it would be just too meaty, and it would be all over the place.
Right.
There are some things that this movie has done better than any superhero movie I've seen. So, like, for instance, they did Batman probably better than anyone. So, like, how awesome was his Batcave, the Batmobile, the entrance, all that stuff. The aesthetics of Batman were great. I've never seen it done. Alfred, Ben Affleck was fantastic. There are some other things that I have problems with. It was kind of, as far as the story goes, it was kind of jumbled at some parts to me. It was kind of, I mean, granted, this is a Zack Snyder film, so
right.
As a disclaimer, all of the visuals were fantastic. This is a beautiful looking movie. No one's going to argue with that. The fight scenes were amazing. These story choices, and this isn't necessarily Snyder's fault, or if you really want to think about it, it's not even David Goyer or Chris Terrio's fault. This was a studio, in my eyes, this for my problems of it. It was a studio pushing this. This had, in my opinion, way too much going on. This could have been easily 3 or 4 movies in it. And looking back now, trailer 3 even more so kind of ruined everything. Yeah. But see, here's what's interesting about that, because you know how much that upset me.
You're talking the Doomsday review trailer.
The Doomsday
reveal trailer, yeah.
Right, that's correct. So, like, I had to see this movie again today, which you know, and the reason why is because I wasn't sure how I felt about it the first time afterwards.
Right.
That, in and of itself, is kind of a problem, that I had to see it twice to get a full opinion, if you think about it. So, I was thinking the second time that I'm actually glad that they showed Doomsday in the third trailer, because towards the end of the first time, if we had no idea that was going to happen at all, like they didn't even show Doomsday at all, that would have been, it just would have been way too much. Looking back, I understand why they did it, but again, it spoiled pretty much everything. There were some story problems that I had that I picked up on even more so when I saw it today.
Right.
Well, one of the biggest things that bothered me was, again, it's titled Batman v Superman, right? So these are the 2 comic book heroes that set the bar for every other, whether it's Marvel, DC. These are the 2 most famous. They're the two most renowned. So when they fight in the Frank Miller version, The Dark Knight Returns, it's because of things like philosophical differences and their opinions. So it's passionate. And this case, it was because Lex Luthor kidnaps Clark's mom. So his option was either to try to convince Bruce to help him, or if he can't, he has to kill him, right?
Right.
So I paid really close attention to what happened, even more so this today when they fought. And when Superman lands, for instance, the first thing is he's trying to get Bruce to listen to him. So he's like, Clark, listen to me. And then you see the sonic cannons start going off, and they start hitting him. And then he kills the cannons, and then they immediately get close, face to face. And that was it. That was as far as he got with trying to convince him. He then pushed Batman, and then they started fighting. So they had this amazing fight, and then at the end, all it took was for 5 minutes later, Superman just to mention Martha. And that's what snapped Bruce out of it. And he was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll listen to you now. But the whole time, there were so many chances for Superman to be like, look, I'm not going to fight you. Just listen to me for a second. I have a problem with that because it wasn't a genuine fight. Superman wasn't trying to. So he wasn't going all out. It wasn't because of passion or philosophical differences. So that is, in my opinion, is one of the most fundamental flaws of the movie as far as the choices they went with the story. That's what I'm talking about as far as the story goes.
Okay. I enjoyed the darker, gritty feel. I really did. I think the backstory of Batman was fantastic. It was well-rounded, wrapped up, and the visual scenes as far as and I'm not trying to get into visuals yet, but the visual scenes as far as the flashbacks were phenomenal. They told you what you needed to know. Again, like I said, visuals, nobody's going to gripe about them. The visuals looked a lot better, looked even better than the ones in Man of Steel.
Right.
You can definitely tell there was some money thrown into this. Yeah, the story was very meaty, very, very large, a lot of information thrown at you. And this isn't one that you can just go in and sit down and just turn your mind off and watch. It is a bit more cerebral. It's based more, like we said during the beta review, is that it's kind of based off the adult animated series kind of feel to it, or like a more of adult graphic novel feel to it.
Right.
You can't just go in there and expect a good rock'em sock'em, here we go.
Right.
So I actually appreciated that part. Do I feel like that it jumped around a little bit more than it needed to, and it could use just a little bit more continuity? Yes. Yes, it did feel at times very jumbled. It did not always flow as it should or as it could have, because like you said, I feel like that they were shoving a lot of content into 2.5 hours, to where they could have easily had your Batman vs. Superman, had your great fight toward the end, had a little more passion and feel into it, and then, hey, we've got him for this one. Let's write another 2-hour movie and pull him in for this part of it, and not call it Batman vs. Superman. You know,
Right.
you could have called that one Batman vs. Superman, and then you could have called this next one Dawn of the Justice League.
Right.
You know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. You know.
So like when you say it was jumbled, are you talking about like the editing? So like they'll be at this scene and then they'll go to this scene and then they'll go back.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I'll agree with you on. It's like they didn't give you time to get fully invested in emotional scenes. So like, you know, like a funeral, or
Yeah.
just like right when you're finally being like, okay, let's go here. They go to this over here, and they're like, well, I wasn't even, you know, fully invested in that. It was
There was some sporadic nature to it, but at the same time, on the pro side of it, I like that how they gave you some scenes, but didn't force feed you exactly what was going on. And then later, as you watch the movie, pieces of the puzzle started to come together. And a lot of us already knew that Lex Luthor was going to be pulling the strings, and we're like, okay, well, they're setting this up that Lex is pulling the strings and everything. And if you wouldn't have known that, you know, it would have still been just as bit as entertaining as, aha, I see what they did there. And I'm not going to completely fault them for that, but that you know, that was some of the pro and the con to it. So that's as far as story is what I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like I got the feel the second time that when you're right when you say this is not a Marvel film. So this is nowhere near the formula that Marvel has done.
Right.
And I can't say what the studios were thinking, but it almost gives the impression when I see a movie this stuffed and, you know, this sporadic and bloated, that they're trying to make a conscious decision, almost too much, to get away from what's been done. And they swung for the fences on a lot of these decisions with the storytelling. This is a very bold and ambitious film. Again, there were some things that they did better than any superhero movie I've seen, but there were a lot of times where a lot of things in the story just didn't work for me. So, like, another one, I don't like how Doomsday was created. That's something that it didn't work for me. The fact that, you know, Lex cut off the fingertips of Zod, and then he got into the machine, and then he took over the machine, and then he cut himself, and then put his blood on Zod's face, and then the machine turned him into Doomsday. It's just, that was another thing that I wasn't really glad with the choices they made with the story. The dreams, you talked about the dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Visually, the nightmare scene was freaking awesome. It was like a straight up Mad Max, right?
They did well in the nightmare scenes,
and that was all in one take, pretty much. The action, that was freaking awesome. The problem with that, again, I know it sounds like I hate the movie, but the problem that I had with that was, it's like he had a dream, and it was a post-apocalyptic world, and then he sees the Dark Side logo in the dirt, and then he wakes up, and then he's in that hallway. Superman kills the people, then he kills Bruce, and then he wakes up again, and then Flash comes through, and then he wakes up again. It's just like, I wasn't buying that either, to be honest.
There's a little. They could have maybe broken those up into different dreams.
Because tonally, if you think about everything, again, it's a beautiful film, but tonally, it was all over the place too. That's another thing that I had. It wasn't really as consistent as I wanted it to be.
Yeah. I can agree with you there. I can agree with you on that tonal jumpage back and forth. I mean, yeah, that at times got a little confusing and frustrating, but it still didn't retract a whole lot as far as if you were really following it.
Right.
All right. Anything else, sir, on the story?
Superman's death. So, what did you feel? What did you feel about the death of Superman?
When I knew it was going to actually happen, I started golf clapping to myself, to you for the call on the Geek Speak when you called it. I was like,
right.
Man, he freaking called it. He freaking called it. It makes some sense. I see how they're going to use it to try to pull everyone together to unite them. Of course, at the end, as you see the casket on Clark's casket, the dirt starts to rise and everything.
Right.
So everybody's got an idea on what's going to happen there. And I think a lot of that, and this is a theory. Actually, I'm going to give you real quick.
Okay.
You know how George Miller has always denied, no, he's not going to direct the next Man of Steel. No, he's not. No, he's not.
Right.
I think he may still be tied to it. He's just not going to say anything about it because they didn't want to spoil the end of this movie. I think he is going to come back. The Justice League will form after maybe a couple solo movies and whatnot.
Right.
And I think George Miller is going to have his hands in it. But as far as the death, I think the death, they were trying to do something a little different. At the same time, stick to the death of the Superman comic, because at the same time, this was Batman vs Superman combined with the death of Superman.
That's correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel some of it was a little condensed, but at the same time, I think they were trying to surprise everybody, because you make a movie called The Death of Superman, everybody knows what's going to happen. When they throw in Doomsday, you kind of have an idea, well, maybe it will happen. Right. So I think, again, it was just writing, them trying to do a lot, throw it in, and they're trying to set the stage. And maybe it is a little befuddling or whatnot, but in the end, I'm okay with it. I think I know where they're going with this.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the biggest criticisms I've heard from the reviews is like they kill Superman, and it's not that people, I think, are mad that they made that choice, that he dies or how he even dies. It's that they, at the end when you see the dirt rise, it's like they did it for nothing. That doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? Because as soon as you know that he's dead, most people, even people that aren't like comic book fans or in the movie space like you and I are, they know they're planning a Justice League. They're not going to make a Justice League without Superman. No, so obviously they're going to bring him back. I thought it was cool. That's what I was hoping would do. But yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
So we've kind of mentioned a little bit as far as visuals. What are your pros and cons as far as on that? Do you feel that there are any cons as far as it
goes? No. Zack Snyder is a master filmmaker when it comes to visuals and effects, fighting, anything visually. That's his playground. So like even the opening credit scenes when it shows, and I'm glad that they did that. I'm glad they did the Batman origin during the credits. But like
kept it short, sweet, and to the point.
Short, sweet, to the point. It is a Zack Snyder film through and through when it comes to visuals. Even that opening credit scenes. I mean, there's so many stylistically. He's just as unique as Nolan, Spielberg, anyone up there. I mean, you could, even if you walked in here and you didn't know who the director was, you'd be like, it's Zack Snyder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can tell his films, they stick out.
The Batman v Superman fight scene was off the chain. Again, visually, it was there were some parts I was worried that, because we've talked about this before, that sometimes his CGI to me looks a little cartoonish, and it's mainly when he has like a photorealistic actor in front of green screens or like explosions. Sometimes they look too cartoonish to me. It wasn't too bad. The fight scenes were amazing, though. I mean, no one's gonna debate that.
Oh yeah, I agree. He played the CGI well. You could tell there were some definite practical effects. Tried to keep it somewhat as much as you can. This movie was a little more grounded in some of the realism, minus maybe, you know, of course, superhero part. But that suit. I like how they didn't go into the suit as far as how much it protected him. You could still see that Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck's character, he felt every hit, every punch, whatnot. But then again, I like it with the use of the gas, and as far as when he was beating up on Superman, he felt every hit, every punch, and visually you could see that, you could tell that, and it wasn't very cartoony. You actually felt like it was the two of them in real life just slugging it out with each other. And so that was well played. And you know what? And Doomsday actually did not turn out that bad. I liked that he did evolve over time.
He looked, you guys know that. He looked a lot better to me than I thought he was going to look from that trailer. Especially even when he was first born, I was like, man, they nailed it on the head. That is a baby form. And then he kept on looking better and better. My favorite visuals actually were everything practical. So anything that had to do with Batman, his fight scene, and especially, I'm telling you, Zack Snyder, if he ever decided to just direct a straight up horror suspense movie, he would kill it. Because remember that scene in Man of Steel when Zod takes over everyone's television, and then Bruce or Clark has to go inside his house, and he opens that screen door. It's like, right? Mm-hmm. That was very suspenseful. Another scene in this that reminded me of that is when you first see Batman by that cop, and it turns the panel, and he's just hiding on the wall. He looks like a freaking demon, dude. I was like, oh my god, it was awesome. My favorite fight scene was Batman kicking everyone's butt at the end, saving Martha. I mean, name another director that can do hand combat fight scenes that good and make it look that good?
Absolutely. And that was a nice final touch as far as onto it all, was that practical effects fight scene when you had this whole, you had this much bigger CGI fight going on to kind of still bring it back down and ground it in the old and the practical. So, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say some of these things they've done better than any superhero movie ever, with some of the things like that.
Yeah,
but yeah, everything Batman. Now, whenever we're talking Batman, of course, your thoughts on the Batmobile. What were you thinking on the Batmobile?
Oh, I liked it. I liked the Batmobile. I liked it that it was it still had some of the sleek to it as some of the old, but then again it had some of the tough and rumble as the Tumbler did in the Nolan films. It was kind of your best of both worlds. And I loved all the different, like the anti-missile system it had, and the fact that even though it still looked sleek, it could take a beating.
Right. So the whole time I was watching this, I was like, I wonder who would win, this or the Tumbler. That's what I was thinking the whole time. I mean, you know how much of a Dark Knight trilogy fan I am. I still like the Tumbler better, but it was pretty sick. I'll give it that.
I'm gonna have to say they're at a stalemate. I can't choose. I haven't seen.
But see, here's the thing.
I haven't seen enough of the new one to make a choice.
That's true. I was thinking that too. But the Tumbler has the Bat Pod. That's the thing.
It's got a plan B. It's got a plan B.
That is correct.
Yeah, very
nice.
That
is
correct. All right. Now sound, audio, pros and cons. What you got?
So are we talking? Is this like the music portion, or is
music, sound effects? We're gonna all tie it in together.
The only thing, and one of my favorite parts of this movie, and I'm really glad, there were a lot of parallels between this and Man of Steel. This definitely, it seems like the same sequel, the same filmmaker as Man of Steel. But even as far as the progression of the story, they did the same thing. Because with Man of Steel, there was a lot of build-up, and there was a lot of drama, and then it just led to massive amounts of action. The rest of the movie was straight-up action. This had the same thing. They did the exact same thing with the music. One of my favorite scenes was when Superman saves that girl from the collapsing building, and then he flies down, and they play the Man of Steel theme.
Yeah,
I'm glad they did stuff like that. The only music that I didn't like, because I thought it was really out of place, was Wonder Woman's theme.
Yeah,
they play. That's the thing is, and I talked to a friend about this today. It did not feel like a superhero theme at all to me.
It felt like sometime like a 1990s movie, like capoeira, kung fu, jungle music.
I told him that it doesn't sound like Wonder Woman. It sounded like you're in a Quentin Tarantino movie and the guy that's about to cut your ear off just walked in the room. That's seriously, like, it sounded, you know what I mean? It just had that.
Yeah, nailed it. Yeah, that is the only weak point, if you ask me, was Wonder Woman's music. It's just, I feel like people are gonna come in, wearing bamboo armor and facial masks and hooting and hollering and voodoo dolls out around the corner. I mean, fix the theme, folks. Fix the theme on that. But that's my only gripe.
Right, I agree.
Everything else was fine.
So the thing about this movie, I've talked a little bit about this, my negatives as far as the story goes. Mm-hmm. Zack Snyder, he is bold, and as well as the DCU, they are taking bold chances, and they've never let us down as far as controversy with their choices so far. Anyways,
yeah.
Every movie's been very controversial that they've swung for the fences. One of the things that he has done, kind of like, and it's kind of something I've seen. Watchmen aside, sometimes he seems to try to put force substance on things that doesn't really fit for me. So, like, one of the things, that example is like when he keeps going back to that painting in Lex Luthor's office. I understand what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
But there are things like that
the angels and demons painting is what you're talking about.
It's little things like that I don't know. We'll see what happens. I feel bad for Snyder because he's got a real gift. It's just, and I don't blame him for the story parts, because again, it's Terrio, Goyer, and especially the studios.
Sometimes you deal with the hand that they gave you. Oh, I can't talk, but I mean that's all you can do, especially when the studio's saying either do it or don't do it at all. So,
right.
Not everybody can pull what Deadpool pulled and everything. So, but let's hope that will inspire others to come from here on out.
Right.
That's one thing I can say. A little more independence, a little more fan involvement, fan voice. Do what you think is right, not what the studio wants to cram down your neck. I'm surprised more and more theaters need to take that into account, and that's something maybe they could have done a little bit more of. Now, given the fact that they pretty much had this movie cut and done by the time of the release of Deadpool, to see its rise and everything and its success, I think that a lot of films that come after this year are going to look at that, and we're going to see a much grittier, much harder, much more open to what the fan wants and what the studio wants, and not so much about kissing the asses of studio execs and the butts of highly overpaid critics out there. And yes, we are critics, but we're not highly overpaid, so I can still say that.
What did you say?
So, right. But as far as I go, moving on from that, what is your number, sir?
Okay, so this is tough because this was the number one movie I was hoping for. Again, this was like my equivalent to Star Wars for you.
Right.
So, what I said when we did our initial reaction, mm-hmm. and again, which I said earlier in this video, I had to watch it twice to fully develop an opinion. That in and of itself is not very good.
Right.
I said in our reaction video that when I was watching this felt like if you could perfectly adapt an adult-oriented animated DC film to a movie. That's what I was thinking the whole time. This is, like Batman Bad Blood, or, The Son of Batman. This straight up Frank Miller, Dark Knight Returns. They just created it in a live action. So that is, and the problem with that, and why I think it's getting some of the reviews is because that is a niche market in and of itself. There's a reason why the majority of people don't buy those movies and watch them. Again, you and I like them.
Yeah.
So if you like those movies, you're probably going to like this. The reason why I'm saying this now is because today when I watched it again, some of the tone, which we talked a little bit about the tone and the story, there's a reason why it is in that medium as an animated film, because not everything you do is going to translate to a good movie. You know, that you're talking about two different mediums. So like some of the tone in this reminded me straight up of 2000, I think it's 2005, Ang Lee's The Hulk. Now that is an extremely comic book movie, you know, with the super comic book cuts and like, you know, the editing. This wasn't far off a tone of that, I felt sometimes, and that isn't a really good thing. It had some story problems, fundamental problems, I think. We've talked about the action. Visually, it was all good, the acting.
Right.
Overall, I'm going to have to give this a 6.
A 6. So it's not bad, not great, but it's okay.
I didn't hate it. There's nothing that I straight up disliked about it. I was just let down, and I did not love it as much as I should have. And the thing is, this is Batman v Superman.
Right.
So again, this could have been down. This could have been the greatest superhero film of all time, and it just wasn't.
Right. All right. On my end, I'm gonna kind of get straight to the point and everything. I'm gonna give this a. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 because I think it's a little better than okay. It's not great. But it's pretty good. I would say 7.5. There's okay, and then it's pretty good. It's good. It was good. It was good. It's good. It was good. It did jump around a bit. Sometimes there was some sporadicness that kind of detracted from it. The Wonder Woman theme was not my favorite. I do not care for the the Tiki Jungle Islander music as far as all that goes. And just it could have been better. And you know, Eisenberg, yes, his eccentricness. I was enunciating. Thank you. If you've all watched the outtakes, you know what I'm talking about.
Enunciating.
Yes. Eisenberg had his weak points as far as that goes, but like I said, I think there's layers, and I think they're playing to something on that. So we'll see what happens to there. They could have tied it up a little better, not made it so bloated, are the biggest cons. Other than that, love Batman, love Ben Affleck as Batman. Regardless of what you think of him as an actor or a person, you have to agree he nailed it, knocked it out of the park, and I cannot wait for the other 3 films that he signed on to do and direct. I do believe direct. Cavill, all the other characters, it was well played. The conflict, the worry. They just could have tidied up the story a little. So it's a 7.5. And that's all I have to say about it.
And that's it!
That's all he has to say about that. So quit asking him more questions. What would you think about Affleck compared to Bell? Which one do you think was the... do you think he is the best Batman of all time? Or do you think he's...
You couldn't take your own advice and not ask any more questions.
Right. I apologize.
No, to answer it...
Ask.
I think the voice was done much better. I'm glad we don't have the "Where is she?" anymore.
Man, I'm glad you talked about that. How cool was that voice box thing?
That was well
Alfred
played.
saying? Alfred kept saying that thing when he's held it up.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Is that they saw that criticism and they fixed it and they played on it well, and that was golf clap. Well done, golf clap. The answer to that question is 4.
What did you say?
No, it's simply I don't have an answer right now. I don't have enough to go off of. I can't tell you. So the answer to everything is 4. So it's 4. No, well, I need more data. I don't have enough data to answer that actually right now. So
how do you feel about one of the biggest criticisms is people complaining that Batman straight up murdered folks in this movie, which he did. It's hard to say that he didn't, but they're saying it goes against the fundamental philosophy of his character.
Well, they even said in the story that he stepped over a line, an edge. He's not the Batman of old. Those ideas of morals and all this other stuff have kind of gone out the window, and he's looking at the bigger picture of what he needs to do to protect those out there, to protect humanity. And so that's kind of what I think of that.
Is it one of those things that you liked it? You liked that he was straight up like blowing cars? Okay.
Yeah. I felt it needed it in this much darker, grittier world. because ton of people died in Man of Steel, and people are gonna die in this one. So, and
Right.
but if he didn't kill you, he branded you, which is awesome.
Like a boss.
That's right. All right. Well, good sir. Anything else to add, or have we wrapped it up as well as we can?
I think we've done as good as we're gonna do right now.
Agreed. All right. Well, folks, thank you for sticking around, tuning in, checking this out. I know this one we were a bit long-winded, but we had a lot to say. So, as always, check us out on Facebook, 3 Geeks Flix. Give us a like, tell a friend, leave a comment, get involved. Also, Twitter at the number 3 Geeks Flix. Of course, Flix again, Flix. So remember that. Follow us there. Give us a shout out. Become that third geek. Leave us some info. Let us know what you think. So then we can maybe have you on this show, which is on YouTube. Of course, give us a subscribe. We enjoy you all giving us some feedback, even trolling. We thanked our troll out there. I don't know if we deflated him a little, but come on, give it to me, baby. See what you got.
Don't leave. Come back.
That's right. Oh,
Oh.
he was so lovable. All right, folks. Well, thank you again for sticking around and tuning in. And like I always say at the end of every episode, stay tuned to the glow of those marbles, because we're gonna catch you next time. Good night.
I'm actually kind of nervous about this one.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna scream at you. All right.
Now, whatever happens, we'll be okay. We're gonna make it.
I gotta go. I sat on my wallet the whole show, and now my butt's asleep.
Holly, we didn't talk about Holly Hunter either. We should have, because she did a great job.
Oh, she was strong the whole time. Yeah.
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 But that's the thing, man.
But she's dead. Oh.
If you this is, but she's dead. Do you want to see the rest of my clothes?
No, not really.
My mom bought me Batman pajamas. Thanks, Mom.
Note to self: don't waste your time buying Justin pajamas for Christmas.
I'm sorry. J.J. Abrams was back for a second.
What's he doing there?
He wants to talk about Batman v Superman.